The silence in the Galactic Military Academy's advanced weapons classroom was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Commander ZYXTH, a towering Vorthak with crystalline spines running down his back, stood at attention beside the holographic display showing the latest in pulse rifle technology. His four eyes swept across the diverse group of cadets from 12 different species, all seated in perfectly aligned rows of bioadaptive chairs. Today marks the final examination for advanced weaponry applications, Commander ZYXTH announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen combat across 3 galactic sectors. Each cadet will demonstrate proficiency with standard military equipment or present an equivalent weapon from their homeworld's arsenal. The cadets straightened in their seats. This examination would determine their placement in the Galactic Defense Force. Fail here, and they would be relegated to support roles. Pass, and the elite combat units would open their doors. Cadet Thargon, a massive Brutarian with arms thick as tree trunks, went first. He hefted a warhammer that would have crushed most beings, spinning it with practiced ease before bringing it down on a reinforced target dummy. The impact crater spoke volumes about Brutarian strength. Next came Cadet Scylla, a graceful Etherian whose species had perfected energy manipulation over millennia. She conjured a bow of pure light, firing arrows that pierced through multiple targets with surgical precision. The display drew appreciative murmurs from the other cadets. One by one, each species showed off their natural advantages. The arachnoids demonstrated their web launchers that could immobilize entire squads. The thermals showcased flame projectors that could melt through starship hulls. The aquatic delegates revealed sonic weapons that could disorient enemies from vast distances. Then, Commander ZYXTH called the name that made several cadets exchange glances. Cadet Marcus Chen, human designation. A young man in his early 20s stood up from the back row. Marcus was unremarkable by galactic standards: no claws, no natural armor, no energy manipulation abilities, no enhanced strength. He stood barely 6 feet tall with brown hair and brown eyes that seemed to take in every detail of his surroundings. His uniform fit him properly, but he looked small compared to his alien classmates. Cadet Chen, Commander ZYXTH continued, consulting his datapad, I see no weapon registered under your name. Did you forget to bring something from your homeworld? Several cadets chuckled quietly. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having been discovered only 50 years ago when their first faster-than-light ships stumbled into Confederation space. Most species viewed them as a curiosity, a young race that had somehow developed space travel despite lacking any obvious evolutionary advantages. Marcus walked down the steps toward the demonstration area with calm, measured steps. No sir, I didn't forget anything. Then, perhaps you would like to request standard academy equipment? Commander ZYXTH's tone carried a hint of impatience. A plasma rifle, perhaps? Or a gravity disruptor? Actually sir, I was hoping to use materials available in this classroom. Marcus gestured around the spacious room filled with training equipment, target dummies, and various technological components. The Vorthak commander's spines rattled slightly, a sign of confusion among his species. Cadet, this is not a scavenging exercise. This is a weapons demonstration. Yes sir, I understand. May I proceed? Commander ZYXTH's four eyes studied the human for a long moment. In his 3 decades of teaching, he had never encountered such an unusual request. But regulations stated that cadets could use any weapon they could effectively demonstrate, and if the human wanted to embarrass himself, so be it. Very well. You have 30 minutes to prepare and demonstrate. The clock starts now. Marcus nodded and immediately began surveying the classroom with the intensity of a predator studying its territory. His eyes moved systematically from one area to another, cataloging every available resource. While other cadets had spent weeks preparing their traditional weapons, Marcus appeared to be improvising on the spot. He walked to the equipment storage area where various training materials were kept. His hands moved quickly but purposefully, selecting items that seemed completely unrelated to weaponry. From a maintenance kit, he extracted a length of synthetic fiber cord used for equipment securing. From the target range, he gathered several weighted markers that were used to indicate scoring zones. The alien cadets watched with growing confusion as Marcus collected what appeared to be random classroom supplies. Some whispered among themselves, wondering if the human had suffered some kind of mental breakdown under pressure. Commander ZYXTH observed silently, though his crystalline spines continued to rattle with bewilderment. In all his years, he had seen many unusual weapons, bioorganic launchers, crystalline energy focusers, even weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But, watching someone collect classroom supplies as if they were weapon components was unprecedented. Marcus moved to the structural maintenance section and found a piece of flexible alloy rod, approximately 3 feet in length, used for framework repairs. He tested its flexibility by bending it gently, nodding with satisfaction at its spring-back properties. From the electronics station, he retrieved several small components that appeared to be surplus parts from target systems. The human's movements had a strange quality to them, every action seemed deliberate, as if he was following a plan that existed only in his mind. Unlike the other cadets who had simply unveiled weapons they had trained with for years, Marcus was creating something entirely new from materials never intended for combat.
20 minutes remaining, Commander ZYXTH announced.
Marcus had laid out his collected materials on a nearby workbench.
The synthetic cord, the weighted markers, the flexible alloy rod, and various small components formed what looked like the contents of a janitor's closet rather than a weapons assembly kit. But, then, Marcus began to work with his hands in a way that changed the entire atmosphere of the room. His fingers moved with precision and confidence, as if he had performed these exact motions thousands of times before. He began notching both ends of the alloy rod with a small cutting tool from the maintenance kit, creating grooves that seemed perfectly measured despite having no instruments for measurement. The weighted markers were modified next. Marcus used the cutting tool to create small grooves along their sides, then began attaching shorter pieces of the synthetic cord to each one. The modifications looked crude to alien eyes accustomed to energy weapons and advanced technology, but there was something unsettling about the human's absolute confidence in what he was doing. As Marcus continued his work, some of the more observant cadets began to recognize that they were witnessing something significant. The random collection of materials was becoming something else entirely, something with purpose and deadly potential. Cadet Scylla, whose energy bow had drawn such admiration earlier, leaned forward in her seat. "Is he actually building a weapon?" she whispered to her neighbor.
The question rippled through the classroom as more cadets began paying serious attention to the human's activities. What had started as entertainment at the expense of an apparently unprepared student was transforming into something else entirely. Marcus tested the flexibility of the modified alloy rod again, this time stringing the longer piece of synthetic cord between the notches he had created. The moment he pulled the cord taut, the purpose of his construction became unmistakably clear.
He had built a bow.
Not an energy bow like Cadet Scylla's elegant light construct, not a high-tech projectile launcher like those used by the Confederation military, but something far older and more primitive.
Yet the reactions around the classroom suggested that primitive did not necessarily mean ineffective.
10 minutes remaining, Commander ZYXTH called out, though his voice carried a note of curiosity now rather than impatience.
Marcus was now working on the weighted markers he had modified, transforming them into arrows.
Each projectile was carefully balanced and fitted with improvised fletching made from torn pieces of synthetic material. The construction was crude by modern standards, but every element showed signs of careful calculation and purpose. The human tested each arrow individually, rolling them across the flat surface of the workbench to ensure they were straight, making minor adjustments where needed. His concentration was absolute, as if nothing existed beyond the weapon he was creating and the demonstration he was about to give. The classroom had fallen completely silent except for the quiet sounds of Marcus's work. Even the cadets who had been whispering earlier were now watching with intense focus. Something about the human's methodical preparation had captured everyone's attention. Commander ZYXTH found himself studying not just the weapon being constructed, but the person constructing it. Throughout his military career, he had learned to recognize competence and preparedness. The human's actions, despite their improvised nature, carried the hallmarks of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Marcus completed his final arrow and stood back to examine his work. The bow was approximately 4 feet in length with a draw weight that looked substantial despite its improvised construction. 6 arrows lay ready, each one crafted from modified classroom materials but balanced with the precision of manufactured ammunition.
"Time," Commander ZYXTH announced. Marcus picked up his handmade bow and arrows, turning to face the class. "Ready for demonstration, sir."
The Vorthack commander gestured toward the target range at the far end of the classroom. Standard targets were positioned at various distances, designed to challenge the accuracy and power of advanced weaponry. Most cadets had struggled to hit targets beyond the 50-meter mark with any consistency.
"Proceed, Cadet Chen." Marcus walked to the firing line, knocking his first arrow with movements that seemed almost ritualistic in their precision. He drew the string back, the modified alloy rod bending in a perfect arc that distributed tension evenly across the weapon's frame. His stance was relaxed but stable, his breathing controlled. The arrow flew. It struck the closest target dead center with an impact that sent vibrations through the entire target assembly. The modified weighted marker had penetrated completely through the advanced composite material designed to stop military-grade projectiles. Marcus knocked his second arrow without pause, this time aiming at a target twice as far away. Again, the arrow found its mark with pinpoint accuracy, the improvised projectile burying itself deep in the target material. The silence in the classroom was no longer confused or dismissive. It was the silence of recognition, the recognition that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Marcus continued his demonstration, hitting targets at increasingly distant ranges with the same devastating accuracy. Each shot seemed effortless, as if the human were simply pointing at targets and willing them to be struck. The improvised arrows flew in perfect trajectories, their crude construction forgotten in the face of their lethal effectiveness. By the time Marcus had exhausted his ammunition, 6 targets at varying ranges had been destroyed or severely damaged. The farthest target, positioned at the maximum range of the classroom, had been struck with such force that the arrow had not only penetrated but had continued through to embed itself in the reinforced wall behind. Marcus lowered his bow and turned back to face Commander ZYXTH and the assembled cadets. Demonstration complete, sir. The classroom remained silent for several long seconds. Then, one by one, the alien cadets began to understand what they had witnessed. This human, unremarkable by every conventional standard, had just created a weapon from classroom supplies and demonstrated accuracy and power that rivaled the best their own species could offer. Commander ZYXTH's crystalline spines had stopped rattling entirely. In the profound silence that followed Marcus's demonstration, the Vorthack instructor found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. The targets at the far end of the classroom bore testament to accuracy that would have been impressive with military-grade equipment, let alone improvised materials. Cadet Chen, Commander ZYXTH said slowly, his voice carrying a new tone of respect, please explain the principles behind your weapon choice. Marcus set his handmade bow down carefully, treating it with the same respect he might show to a precision instrument. Sir, the bow represents one of humanity's oldest distance weapons. It converts stored potential energy into kinetic energy through mechanical advantage. The principle is simple, controlled release of tension to accelerate a projectile. Cadet Vorkesh, a Zentorian whose species prided themselves on technological superiority, raised one of his 4 arms. But, surely such a primitive weapon cannot compete with modern energy systems? My plasma rifle can fire hundreds of shots without reloading. Marcus nodded respectfully. You're absolutely correct about rate of fire, Cadet Vorkesh. But, consider the tactical implications. Your plasma rifle requires power cells, maintenance, and produces distinctive energy signatures that can be detected across vast distances. It also generates heat and electromagnetic interference. The human gestured toward his improvised weapon. This bow was constructed from materials available in any standard facility. It requires no power source, produces no detectable signatures, and operates completely silently. The arrows can be recovered and reused if necessary. Commander ZYXTH studied the weapon with new interest. Continue your analysis, Cadet. Furthermore, Marcus said, warming to his subject, the bow's effectiveness isn't diminished by environmental factors that might disable technological weapons. Electromagnetic pulses, radiation fields, extreme temperatures, or dampening fields won't affect its operation. Cadet Scylla, whose energy bow had seemed so impressive earlier, spoke up. But, the construction appears crude compared to proper manufacturing standards. Marcus smiled, and there was something unsettling about the expression. That's exactly the point, Cadet Scylla. This weapon was built in 30 minutes from classroom supplies. Imagine what could be accomplished with proper materials and time. He picked up one of his remaining arrows, examining the improvised fletching made from synthetic material strips. Human history is filled with examples of sophisticated weapons being defeated by simpler alternatives. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the most effective solution. The classroom buzzed with quiet conversations as cadets from different species began discussing the implications of what they had witnessed.
The arachnoids, whose web launchers relied on specialized biological processes, seemed particularly disturbed by the idea that effective weapons could be improvised from basic materials.
Commander ZYXTH raised one massive hand for silence. Cadet Chen, your demonstration raises questions about human military doctrine. Are you suggesting that your species deliberately chooses primitive weapons over advanced technology?
Not at all, sir, Marcus replied. Humans use the most advanced weapons available to us. But, we also maintain knowledge of fundamental principles that don't depend on technology. We call it appropriate technology, using the right tool for the specific situation. The human walked over to the target he had struck at maximum range. The improvised arrow had penetrated so deeply that only the synthetic fletching was visible. In some situations, the most sophisticated weapon is the most appropriate. In others, simplicity provides advantages that complexity cannot match.
Cadet Thargon, the massive Brutarian who had demonstrated with a warhammer, grunted his approval. Brutarians understand this concept.
Our weapons are simple but effective.
Exactly, Marcus said.
But, consider this, I built this bow from materials that exist in almost any structure in the galaxy. Given time and proper materials, a human could construct weapons using whatever resources were available, regardless of the technological level of the environment. The implications of this statement sent a chill through the assembled cadets. Most species specialized in their particular type of warfare, relying on their natural advantages or technological traditions. The idea that humans could adapt their weapons technology to any available material suggested a level of flexibility that was both impressive and threatening. Commander ZYXTH's military experience allowed him to recognize the strategic significance immediately. You're describing a species that could maintain combat effectiveness even if cut off from their technological base.
Yes, sir, Marcus confirmed. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability.
We study weapons across the entire spectrum of technological complexity, from the most advanced energy systems to tools that can be made from stones and sticks. Cadet LYSS, an ethereal gossamer whose species communicated primarily through electromagnetic fields, spoke in her musical voice.
This suggests that humans view warfare differently than other species.
Most of us develop along specific evolutionary paths that determine our combat capabilities.
Marcus nodded thoughtfully.
Humans didn't evolve with natural weapons like claws or armor or energy manipulation abilities.
We had to develop tools to survive. Over millions of years, that necessity shaped our entire approach to problem solving.
He gestured around the classroom, taking in all the different species present. Each of your species has remarkable natural advantages.
Brutarians have incredible strength.
Etherians can manipulate energy directly.
Zentorians have enhanced reaction speeds. Arachnoids can produce their own ammunition. The human's expression became serious.
Humans learned to study other species and develop tools that could match or exceed their natural capabilities. We became very good at analyzing problems and creating solutions.
Commander ZYXTH found himself reassessing human potential within the galactic community. Are you saying that humans specifically study the combat capabilities of other species?
We study everything, Marcus replied simply.
It's our nature. When humans encountered the galaxy, we immediately began learning about every species we met.
We study your technologies, your tactics, your strengths, and your weaknesses. The classroom had grown very quiet again. The casual way Marcus discussed analyzing other species' weaknesses carried implications that made several cadets uncomfortable.
Cadet Vorkesh's technological pride was clearly stinging. But surely human weapons cannot match the sophistication of advanced energy systems? Marcus walked back to his improvised bow. May I demonstrate something else, Commander? Commander ZYXTH gestured his approval, curious about what other surprises the human might have prepared.
Marcus examined the bow carefully, then made a small adjustment to the string tension.
This demonstration required only basic accuracy. But consider the tactical applications.
He picked up one of the target dummies used for close combat training, a humanoid figure designed to simulate various alien anatomies.
With casual efficiency, he repositioned it at medium range.
Observation, analysis, and adaptation, Marcus said as he nocked another arrow. But, instead of aiming for center mass, he aimed for a specific joint connection where the dummy's arm attached to its torso. The arrow struck with surgical precision, severing the connection and sending the dummy's arm spinning away. The shot had targeted the exact structural weakness that would disable the figure most efficiently. Marcus knocked another arrow and struck the dummy's support joint at the base. The entire figure collapsed as its structural integrity failed. 2 shots, target completely disabled, Marcus explained. Not through overwhelming force, but through precise application of force to critical points. The demonstration was more unsettling than impressive. It suggested a level of analytical thinking that was almost predatory in its efficiency. Cadet Scylla's energy manipulation abilities had made her confident in her combat superiority, but something about the human's approach was deeply disturbing. You're describing a method of fighting that relies on studying your opponent's weaknesses. Exactly, Marcus agreed. Humans excel at pattern recognition and tactical analysis. We observe, we learn, we adapt. It's how we survived as a species despite lacking natural weapons. Commander ZYXTH was beginning to understand why human integration into the Galactic Defense Force had caused such debate among the military leadership. Cadet Chen, are you suggesting that humans have already analyzed the combat capabilities and vulnerabilities of all species in the Confederation? Marcus met the instructor's gaze directly. Sir, humans have been part of the galactic community for 50 years. What do you think we've been doing during that time? The question hung in the air like a threat. Every species present had welcomed humans as junior partners in the galactic community, sharing their technologies and knowledge freely. The possibility that humans had been systematically studying everyone else's capabilities and weaknesses had not occurred to most of them. Cadet Thargon's brutarian directness cut through the growing tension. Human, are you saying your species has been preparing for war against the Confederation? Not at all, Marcus replied calmly. We've been preparing for war alongside the Confederation. But preparation means understanding both your allies and your potential enemies. Knowledge of capabilities and limitations makes better soldiers and better allies. Commander ZYXTH realized that the humans' demonstration had revealed far more than just weapon improvisation skills. It had provided insight into an entire species' approach to warfare and survival. Cadet Chen, please continue with your explanation of human military doctrine. Marcus relaxed slightly, seeming to appreciate the opportunity to educate rather than intimidate. Humans believe that information is the most powerful weapon. Understanding your environment, your resources, your allies, and your enemies provides more tactical advantage than any single piece of technology. He gestured toward his improvised bow again. This weapon is just an example. The real demonstration was the process, rapid assessment, resource identification, and tactical implementation. Those skills apply regardless of the specific situation or available technology. The human walked over to the equipment storage area where he had gathered his materials. In 30 minutes, I surveyed this classroom, identified useful resources, conceived a weapon design, manufactured the weapon, and demonstrated its effectiveness. That same process could be applied to any environment with any available materials. Cadet LYSS, whose species' electromagnetic communication made her sensitive to emotional undercurrents, spoke carefully. This suggests that humans could develop weapon solutions in environments where other species might be helpless. That's the goal, Marcus confirmed. Human survival strategy is based on adaptability. We assume that we'll eventually face situations where our normal advantages aren't available. So we train to be effective under any circumstances. The implications were staggering. Most species relied on their natural advantages or specific technologies. The idea of a species that could remain combat effective regardless of circumstances represented a completely different approach to warfare. The atmosphere in the classroom had shifted dramatically. What had begun as a routine weapons demonstration had evolved into something resembling a military intelligence briefing. The alien cadets found themselves looking at their human classmate with new eyes, not as an unremarkable member of a young species, but as a representative of something far more complex and potentially dangerous. Commander ZYXTH, whose 3 decades of military experience had taught him to recognize significant moments, decided to probe deeper into human capabilities. Cadet Chen, you've demonstrated improvisation and tactical thinking. But warfare involves more than individual weapons proficiency. How do humans approach large-scale military operations? Marcus considered the question carefully. Sir, human military doctrine is based on what we call combined arms, the integration of different capabilities to achieve objectives that no single element could accomplish alone. He gestured toward the diverse group of alien cadets.
In a sense, the Galactic Defense Force already operates on this principle.
Each species contributes their unique strengths to create a more effective whole. Humans simply extend that concept to our equipment and tactics as well.
Cadet Vorkesh, still smarting from the implication that his advanced technology could be matched by improvised weapons, pressed the issue.
But surely coordination requires technological superiority?
The Zentorian tactical networks can process battlefield information at rates no other species can match.
Absolutely, Marcus agreed.
And that's exactly why humans would want Zentorians as allies rather than enemies.
But consider this scenario: what happens if your tactical networks are disabled or compromised? The Zentorians' confidence faltered slightly. Like most technologically advanced species, the Zentorians had become dependent on their sophisticated systems. Marcus continued, human doctrine assumes that every system can fail and every advantage can be neutralized. So we always maintain backup approaches that don't depend on our primary capabilities.
Commander ZYXTH found himself fascinated by the human's analytical framework.
Give us a specific example, Cadet.
Certainly, sir.
Take communications. Most galactic species rely on quantum entanglement networks or subspace relays for military communications. These systems are incredibly sophisticated and effective until an enemy develops jamming technology or targets the relay stations. Marcus walked to the classroom's communication panel, which connected to the Academy's main network. Humans also use advanced communication technology, but we maintain proficiency with backup systems that range from radio waves to visual signals to written messages carried by runners. He demonstrated by using hand signals that conveyed complex information without any technological assistance. Each method has different advantages.
Advanced systems provide speed and efficiency. Simple systems provide reliability and stealth.
The demonstration was simple, but the implications were profound. Most species had evolved along paths that led them to optimize specific capabilities.
Humans seem to have deliberately chosen a path that emphasized redundancy and adaptability over specialization.
Cadet Scylla, whose energy manipulation abilities had made her species natural masters of advanced weaponry, asked, but doesn't maintaining proficiency across so many different approaches make humans less effective at any specific approach? Marcus smiled, and again there was something unsettling about the expression.
That's exactly what most of our enemies assumed as well.
The casual reference to human military history sent a chill through the classroom.
Most galactic species had achieved interstellar travel through cooperation and technological development.
Humans were one of the few species that had reached the stars while still actively engaging in warfare among themselves. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other, Marcus continued matter-of-factly. Every possible type of warfare, in every possible environment, using every possible technology level. By the time we reached the stars, we had accumulated more combat experience than most species encounter in their entire evolutionary history. Commander ZYXTH's military training recognized the significance of this statement.
You're saying that humans developed interstellar capability while still engaged in active warfare?
Yes, sir. In fact, much of our space technology was originally developed for military purposes. Rocket technology came from weapons research. Satellite systems were designed for reconnaissance and communication. Computer systems were built to calculate artillery trajectories and breaking enemy codes. The humans' casual recitation of militarized technological development painted a picture of a species that approached every problem from a military perspective. Most galactic civilizations had developed space technology for exploration or resource acquisition.
Humans had developed it for war. Cadet Thargon, whose Brutarian culture valued martial prowess above all else, nodded with approval.
Your species sounds like natural warriors.
Not natural warriors, Marcus corrected.
Trained warriors.
There's an important difference.
Natural warriors fight using instinct and inherited abilities. Trained warriors fight using knowledge and develop skills.
He gestured toward his improvised bow. This weapon represents thousands of years of human development. The basic design is ancient, but every element has been refined through generations of use in actual combat.
The materials I selected, the proportions I used, the techniques I employed, all of this knowledge was purchased with blood and tested in real warfare.
The classroom fell silent as the cadets absorbed the implications. They had assumed that humans were newcomers to warfare, having only recently joined the galactic community. Instead, they were learning that humans brought with them millennia of concentrated military experience. Commander ZYXTH decided to explore the strategic implications. Cadet Chen, how do humans approach warfare against opponents with superior technology? Asymmetric tactics, sir. When you can't match an enemy's strengths directly, you avoid fighting on their terms. You force them to fight on your terms instead. Marcus walked back to his bow and picked it up. For example, imagine a conflict between humans and Zentorians. Zentorian technology is clearly superior in direct engagement. So humans wouldn't seek direct engagement. Cadet Vorkash bristled at the implied challenge to Zentorian military superiority. What alternative would humans employ? We would study Zentorian capabilities and identify dependencies. Your advanced technology requires sophisticated manufacturing, specialized materials, complex supply chains, and trained technicians. Humans would target those dependencies rather than engaging your military forces directly. The humans' analytical approach was coldly professional. Disrupting supply chains, targeting manufacturing facilities, eliminating technical specialists, introducing system vulnerabilities, these approaches could neutralize technological advantages without requiring direct technological competition. Commander ZYXTH realized that the human was describing a completely different approach to warfare than any he had encountered. Most species engaged in direct military competition, matching capability against capability. Humans appeared to approach warfare as a complex problem requiring creative solutions. Furthermore, Marcus continued, humans would simultaneously work to develop countermeasures to Zentorian technology while exploiting our own advantages. Zentorians might have superior reaction speeds, but humans excel at long-term planning and complex coordination. Cadet LYSS, whose empathic abilities made her sensitive to the emotional undercurrents of the conversation, spoke nervously. You're describing warfare as a systematic analysis problem rather than a test of strength or courage. Exactly, Marcus agreed. Humans learned early in our history that courage and strength alone aren't sufficient against superior opponents. Intelligence, planning, and adaptability provide more reliable advantages. He set the bow down and faced the class directly. Every human military academy teaches the same fundamental principle: know your enemy better than your enemy knows himself. Understand his capabilities, his limitations, his psychology, and his resources. Then, develop strategies that exploit the gaps between what he can do and what he thinks he can do. The statement carried implications that extended far beyond military tactics. It suggested an entire species devoted to the systematic study and exploitation of other beings' weaknesses. Commander ZYXTH found himself wondering what weaknesses humans had identified in Vortak capabilities. Cadet Chen, this approach suggests that humans view other species primarily as potential enemies. Not at all, sir, Marcus replied. We view other species as complex entities with capabilities and limitations. Understanding those characteristics makes us better allies as well as more effective opponents. He gestured around the classroom again. Every species here has shared knowledge with humans. That knowledge helps us integrate more effectively into joint operations. But, the same analytical approach that makes us good allies would also make us dangerous enemies. The distinction was subtle but important. Humans weren't inherently hostile, but they were inherently analytical. They studied everything and everyone with the same systematic approach that had allowed them to survive and thrive on their homeworld. Cadet Scylla, whose earlier demonstration with energy weapons seemed almost quaint compared to the humans' tactical complexity, asked quietly, have humans identified weaknesses in all of our species? Marcus met her gaze directly. Cadet Scylla, humans have identified weaknesses and strengths in all known species, technologies, and tactical approaches. It's not personal, and it's not hostile. It's simply how we process information. The casual admission sent a ripple of unease through the assembled cadets. They had welcomed humans into the galactic community, sharing their knowledge and capabilities freely. Learning that humans had been systematically analyzing everyone else's vulnerabilities was deeply unsettling. Commander ZYXTH realized that this conversation had revealed information that would need to be reported to the highest levels of Galactic Defense Force Command. Cadet Chen, are you authorized to discuss human intelligence gathering activities? Sir, everything I've described is basic human military doctrine. Any academy graduate would know these principles.
The specific intelligence applications would be classified, but the general approach is standard education for all human military personnel. The implication was clear: if basic human military education included systematic analysis of alien capabilities and vulnerabilities, then specialized human intelligence services had undoubtedly developed comprehensive databases on every species in the galaxy. Marcus seemed to recognize the concern his revelations were causing.
Sir, if I may suggest, these capabilities make humans valuable allies precisely because they make us dangerous enemies. A species that can only be effective under specific circumstances is limited in its usefulness. A species that can adapt to any circumstances provides strategic flexibility.
Commander ZYXTH appreciated the diplomatic way the human had reframed the discussion, but the underlying message remained clear. Humans brought to the galactic community not just their individual skills, but an entire civilization's worth of military experience and analytical capability.
The final moments of the weapons demonstration had transformed into something far more significant than anyone had anticipated.
Commander ZYXTH found himself faced with the responsibility of evaluating not just a student's performance, but the strategic implications of an entire species' approach to warfare. The improvised bow that had seemed so primitive 30 minutes earlier now represented something much more complex and potentially threatening.
Cadet Chen, Commander ZYXTH said carefully, your demonstration has been most illuminating. However, I need to understand the full scope of human capabilities. Are you prepared to answer some additional questions? Marcus straightened to attention.
Yes, sir.
I'll answer anything I'm authorized to discuss.
The qualifier was telling.
It suggested that there were aspects of human capabilities that were classified even from galactic allies.
First question, you've demonstrated individual adaptability and tactical thinking.
How widespread are these capabilities among human military personnel?
Sir, these are baseline requirements for human military service. What I've demonstrated today would be expected from any human soldier, regardless of their specialized training or equipment. The casual nature of Marcus's response made the statement even more unsettling. He wasn't claiming to be exceptional among humans, he was claiming to be ordinary.
Cadet Vorkesh couldn't contain himself any longer. You're saying that all human soldiers could improvise weapons from random materials?
Basic field expedient weapons, yes, Marcus confirmed. Humans train with everything from advanced energy systems to improvised explosive devices made from common chemicals. We assume that we might find ourselves in situations where our normal equipment isn't available. Commander ZYXTH's crystalline spines began rattling again as he processed the implications.
Cadet, are you telling me that human military training includes instruction in manufacturing explosives from common materials?
Yes, sir. Along with communications equipment, weapons, medical supplies, and survival gear. Human military doctrine assumes that soldiers might need to operate independently for extended periods without resupply or support. The Vortak commander's military experience allowed him to recognize the strategic significance of this capability. Most galactic military forces were designed around sophisticated supply chains and technological support. The idea of soldiers who could manufacture their own equipment from available materials represented a completely different approach to military logistics. Cadet Scylla, whose species had always relied on their natural energy manipulation abilities, asked, but surely human soldiers carry standard equipment as well? Of course, Marcus replied. But we train to be effective even if all our standard equipment is lost or disabled. Human military history includes many examples of units that continued fighting effectively after being cut off from supply and support.
He gestured toward his improvised bow. This weapon demonstration was just one example.
Human soldiers learned to improvise medical equipment, communication devices, transportation, shelter, and even food production using whatever resources are available.
The implications were staggering.
While other species had developed specialized military capabilities that depended on their technological and biological advantages, humans had apparently developed the ability to remain militarily effective under almost any circumstances.
Commander ZYXTH decided to explore the psychological aspects of human military development. Cadet Chen, this level of adaptability suggests unusual mental flexibility. How do humans maintain effectiveness across such diverse requirements? Marcus considered the question thoughtfully.
Sir, human military training emphasizes problem-solving methodology rather than memorizing specific solutions. We learn frameworks for analyzing situations and developing responses, rather than just learning to use particular tools or weapons. He walked back to his workbench where the components of his improvised bow lay scattered. For example, I didn't memorize how to build a bow from classroom supplies. I applied general principles about energy storage, projectile dynamics, and material properties to the specific resources available in this environment. The human began reassembling his weapon as he continued explaining. Human education, both military and civilian, focuses heavily on understanding fundamental principles. That knowledge can be applied to novel situations even when the specific circumstances haven't been encountered before.
Cadet Thargon, whose Brutarian culture valued direct approaches to problem solving, found himself impressed despite his species' usual disdain for overthinking.
This suggests that humans can develop effective responses to completely unexpected situations.
That's the goal, Marcus agreed.
Human survival strategy assumes that the future will present challenges we haven't specifically prepared for. So we train to be adaptable rather than just well-equipped. Commander ZYXTH realized that the human was describing an educational and military system designed around the assumption of constant uncertainty and change. Most galactic civilizations developed along more stable paths that allowed for specialization and optimization.
Cadet, this approach seems to require enormous investment in education and training. How does human society support such extensive preparation?
Marcus's expression became slightly proud. Sir, human society is built around the concept of distributed knowledge. Every human receives education in basic survival skills, analytical thinking, and problem solving. Military training simply extends and focuses these general capabilities. The human gestured toward the diverse group of alien cadets. Most species develop individuals who are extremely capable within their areas of specialization. Humans develop individuals who are moderately capable across many different areas, with the ability to become highly capable in any specific area when circumstances require it. Cadet LYSS, whose empathic sensitivity had been picking up increasingly complex emotional undercurrents throughout the discussion, spoke carefully.
This suggests that humans view adaptability as more valuable than specialization.
In military contexts, yes, Marcus confirmed. Specialization creates efficiency but also creates vulnerabilities. If an enemy can neutralize your specialized capability, specialized forces become helpless. Adaptable forces can develop alternative approaches. The statement carried implications that extended beyond military tactics into the very foundations of galactic civilization. Most species in the Confederation had succeeded through specialization, developing their particular advantages to levels that other species couldn't match. Humans seem to have chosen a completely different evolutionary path. Commander ZYXTH found himself wondering how human adaptability would affect the balance of power within the galactic community.
Cadet Chen, you've described human capabilities in military contexts. Do these same principles apply to civilian activities?
Absolutely, sir. Human scientists, engineers, artists, and merchants all train in the same basic analytical approaches. The specific applications vary, but the underlying methodology is consistent across human society. Marcus completed his weapon reassembly and tested the string tension.
Human civilian industries are designed around the same principles of adaptability and redundancy.
Our manufacturing systems can be quickly converted to produce different products.
Our transportation networks include multiple backup approaches.
Our communication systems maintain compatibility across different technological levels. The implications for economic and technological competition were sobering. While other species had developed highly optimized systems for their specific capabilities, humans had apparently developed systems that could adapt to compete in any area.
Cadet Vorkesh, whose Centaurian technological pride had been thoroughly challenged during the demonstration, asked pointedly, "Are you claiming that humans can match any species' capabilities through adaptability?" Marcus met the challenge directly. Not match, exceed. Specialized capabilities are limited by their specialization.
Adaptable capabilities can incorporate the best aspects of any specialized approach while maintaining flexibility that specialization cannot provide. The human's confidence was unsettling, but his demonstration had provided evidence to support his claims. He had taken materials intended for completely different purposes and created a weapon that was both effective and versatile.
Commander ZYXTH realized that the weapon's demonstration had revealed strategic information that would reshape galactic understanding of human capabilities.
The species that had seemed like junior partners in the Confederation were apparently far more sophisticated and potentially dangerous than anyone had realized. Cadet Chen, final question: what are human intentions within the galactic community? Your demonstrated capabilities could be viewed as threatening by some species. Marcus's expression became completely serious. Sir, humans view the galactic community as the most important development in our species' history. For the first time, we have the opportunity to apply our capabilities in cooperation with other species rather than in competition with each other. He gestured around the classroom one final time. Every species here has capabilities that humans respect and want to work with. But respect requires understanding, and understanding requires honest assessment of capabilities and limitations. The human's tone carried absolute conviction. Humans bring to the galactic community everything we've learned from thousands of years of warfare, exploration, and survival. We offer these capabilities in service to the common good, but we also maintain them as protection against any force that might threaten the peace and cooperation we've helped to build. Commander ZYXTH understood that the human had just delivered both a pledge of alliance and a subtle warning. Humans would be valuable allies to those who work with them and potentially devastating enemies to those who oppose them. The weapons demonstration was officially complete, but its implications would resonate throughout the galactic community for generations to come. In 30 minutes, a young human had demonstrated not just individual skill, but revealed the existence of an entire civilization built around adaptability, analysis, and preparation for any possible contingency. As the class period ended and cadets began filing out of the classroom, Marcus carefully disassembled his improvised bow and returned the materials to their original storage locations. The gesture was symbolic. Humans could create weapons from anything, but they could also return to peaceful purposes when threats had passed. Commander ZYXTH remained behind as the last student left. He studied the targets that bore evidence of the human's accuracy, then looked at the young man who had created such an impression on everyone present. Cadet Chen, he said finally, your demonstration will be included in my report to Galactic Defense Force Command. I suspect that human integration protocols will be significantly revised based on today's revelations. Marcus nodded respectfully. Sir, I hope the report will emphasize that human capabilities are offered in friendship and cooperation. We've learned that the strongest civilizations are built on mutual respect and shared strength. Commander ZYXTH's crystalline spine settled into a pattern that indicated deep thought. Indeed, Cadet. Indeed. As Marcus left the classroom, the Vorthack instructor remained behind to contemplate the implications of what he had witnessed. The galactic community had welcomed humans as promising newcomers who would eventually contribute to the greater good. Today's demonstration suggested that humans had been contributing far more than anyone realized, while quietly preparing for possibilities that other species hadn't even considered. The improvised bow had been impressive, but the mind that created it was truly formidable. And, if Marcus Chen represented ordinary human capability rather than exceptional talent, then, the galactic community would need to completely reassess its understanding of humanity's role in the cosmos. In the quiet of the empty classroom, surrounded by the evidence of human adaptability and tactical thinking, Commander ZYXTH began drafting a report that would change everything.